the time. You know, remember I had a roommate, I don't know, 100 years ago now, and if he left the lights on, like, I would get really freaked out because, you know, I was so conditioned by my dad being yelled at if I did something like leave the lights on because, you know, we were wasting money. And so that, like, I became hyper vigilant around other people based on my own safety stuff. And they were distorted views. Um, and so we learn these things like when we're little, when we're so impressionable, and we don't, you know, from 0 to 7, like, you don't have any ability to sort things out, to go, that's not quite right, or I don't believe that, or to question it, or like, you don't have much discernment in that 0 to 7. And if you bury that and walk out as if that information is fact when it's distorted information coming in, then it's like you're limping along and you don't know. You Unless you have a, you know, unless you go back and like reevaluate it and sort it out, like, I don't know, you just continue to limp. So I I can't safety plays a big part in the whole food issues. When somebody is eating compulsively or binging, that's the thing. I'm always looking around where the safety is, and also know that the association that we make a lot of times with food is that the food is keeping us safe. Sometimes it's about the weight will keep us safe. If there's a history of any type of abuse or sexual abuse, we will put weight on our body to make ourselves look less attractive or to physically be bigger so that we can protect ourselves. It's again perception, not necessarily fact. And the other thing that it comes around is that the food is my friend. Like, it, you know, that belief, like, that's not true if it's just food, but this belief, like, if you can't trust or rely on or feel cared for by any of the humans around you, then food is a constant that you can make an association with. And again, it's not fact, but it's an association that we make. And so I'm always, as I'm looking, like, I'm looking for where it is perceived safety. And so just paying attention to that. But I will tell you, sitting here, safety is a complete illusion. I had to take my dad to the VA today, and the doctor there, I don't even know how we got on this topic, but I said something about, I know. So she was complaining about the traffic in Johnson City, which is hysterical to me. Like, what is traffic in Johnson City? Um, and I was like, oh, I used to live in Atlanta. I'm like, you know, unless you've been to Atlanta, like, you can't talk about traffic. And she said, my brother was shot in Atlanta. He was like a postal worker or social security worker, and he went there on a training. He's doing everything he's supposed to be doing. He's just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he gets shot. I did not ask the follow-up question, which I'm not sure if I was heartless or respectful, but it like hung there for just a minute. But that's kind of the thing. I mean, you even think about driving down the road. Like, I was driving down the road one day, doing everything I was supposed to be doing. You know, hands on, you know, 10 and 2. I'm in the right lane. I'm, for once, driving the speed limit. And some guy, actually, I was in the left lane, but some guy, like, runs a red light and plows into me and totals my car and injures me. I didn't do anything wrong, but yet I'm not safe in that moment. Although my crazy thing was, the thing that I kept saying over and over and over is, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. I was on the phone with my mother and I didn't want to freak her out as my car is spinning around. So, but that whole thing about safety is an illusion. Where our safety comes inside ourselves, knowing that we can take care of ourselves, that everything, even if what, you know, I've got enough gray hair to know that even if I've had these things happen in life where you thought, oh, this is the greatest thing ever, that turned out to be the worst thing ever. And I've had things that felt like the worst thing ever that have turned out to be the best thing ever. And so there's this place where you just go, I'm going to be okay no matter what happens. I'm going to be okay. Like my faith and my confidence in myself and my confidence in the Lord, that I know no matter what comes at me, that it's going to work out. And so that place shifts that safety thing. But I just, like, I really am driving it home, because I want you to become really aware when that thing starts to pop up out of your subconscious as we do this work, because it's so interesting about how we've created these little scenarios with it. Hang on just a second. The other thing I want you to be aware of is like this anxiety, as we were this so the false need for safety creates an internal anxiousness. And so that anxiousness can move into like even perfectionism, right? I grew up with a really super critical dad. God love him. And it falls under the bless your heart category. But when you are in that, right, kind of like this situation with the roommate and the light bulb, this idea to be perfect and do it perfect, so that way then I can't get in trouble and I'm seen as like the good kid, because my brother was the bad kid. And then that, like, for me, washed over into school. And so like I would get anxious around having to speak in the class, or get anxious around doing my homework, or like doing work, or getting anxious around testing. And so then the teacher, like, there was all these report cards that I found. It talked about how I would complain about having stomach aches until it was recess time. And so it was the way it was written was about, oh, it's just me wanting to get out of work. And it wasn't. I had, I had anxiety in those situations, which was driven by perfectionism. But then, of course, when you go outside, then all that pressure's off of you. And so you're not having to perform. And then the other thing, just being out, running, playing, being in fresh air, like that moves things. And so I'm even going to talk about stomach a little bit. I'll do that a little bit later. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to talk about it now. I just, like, I tell you the stories just to kind of help you start to disseminate your own stuff as you see it coming up, because so much of this stuff is like these learned patterns that no longer apply, right? My dad no longer, criticizes me about whether I left the light on, which, oh, by the way, my porch light's always on now, which is kind of funny. But, he's not here. So, like, that no longer, and logically, you're thinking that he's not the boss of me. But if there's a tape still at play and all that anxiety is still there, then he's still running the show. And so it's about getting those voices and those people out of your body. So I was going to talk about having a nervous stomach. So having a nervous stomach impacted, especially at such a young age, it impacted my ability to properly digest food. So if you have ever gone on diets and you've been a really slow loser, it may be because you don't digest food properly, rather than the fact that of what you are eating. And so, sometimes we think a diet's not working for us, when really there's more going on in the background, is why we're actually, our body's not shifting. So, and then the other part is, a lot of times, we'll eat, like if we have an upset stomach, people go, oh, you need to eat saltines, or you need to drink a Sprite, and so we have this conditioning about an upset stomach and putting food in our stomach. And so then we start misinterpreting the difference between anxiety and hunger. And so again, just being really mindful about what is it that's really going on with me, because they can feel and look exactly the same when really they're not. And so that, that's just like how these habits get built. So if you're an emotional eater, food has lost its intended purpose of nutrition. It has become out of our kind of our go-to for anxiety, stress, fear, loneliness, sadness, being overly tired. The list goes on and on and on. But none of that's about nutrition, which is really what food's job is. But when the program runs, what the it is, and the program running believes that it is trying to keep us safe. So my challenge to you is, when you're on your way to buy donuts or you're headed into your third piece of pizza, instead of the usual chatter of you shouldn't have this, or you're being bad, or whatever ineffective thing that you've been using, the question becomes, and so this is like something to like write down. So when you're eating a food, like we all have this list of what I should be doing, and this, that whole thing about I'm good or I'm bad, like, and then having is it bad days or binge day? I know the days that we're supposed to eat off. I can't, like some of these things that people say, I'm just like, cheat days. That's it, cheat days. Like, no one wants to be a cheater. Like, that is so counterintuitive to tell ourselves. Every kid on the planet has been punished for being a cheater at some point in time, whether you're cheating on a test or you were cheating at splitting something with your sibling. Like, nobody wants to be a cheater. And so to say cheat day, like, it makes us feel bad. And so that's just not logical. Anyway, but the question becomes, so this is the noteworthy piece, what is it that I really need in this moment? And then the next one is, what is the most loving thing that I can do for myself in this moment? Those become the two questions, because so often we're eating because we want emotional support, when really what we need is a hug. Now, I may have to get that from my dog because he's the only one hanging out around here. But, coming back into your heart and asking what it is that you really need changes things, because usually we don't slow down enough to even ask that question. And that question may push sadness up, or, whatever. And so that becomes the work, that becomes the thing that you're paying attention to, because this, to me, this is a heart condition. This is an emotional heart condition, not a food condition. Because when I started taking all the parts away from the food and I started attending to my heart, then all the other parts started to change. So food in my world is a red flag that something emotionally is going on. Unless it's like logically that I should be hungry at that moment, then if I'm going back, I'm wanting to eat ice cream 2 days in a row, I question that. I'm like, what's going on? Right? What is it that you really need in this moment? Or if all of a sudden I want a candy bar, like, that's kind of weird for me at this point in my life. So I come back into my heart and go, what's going on? Or if I'm hiding food in any way, or I'm binging on food, if I'm eating, like overeating something that, the chewy ooey gooeys are always red flags. Then again, I'm coming back into my heart and going, what's really going on? What do you really need? Because you just want to pay attention. I have zero food restrictions, zero, right? Outside of, I took Diet Coke out of my life because I just didn't want that in my life anymore. But any binge food I've ever had, like, I eat it normal these days. And so if it starts to move on the scale, like, then I go and question it and I work on it, because I'm not going to be held hostage by food in any way. Food's not going to have power over me. But I was going to say something really important and I don't know where it went, but hopefully it'll be back here in a minute. Man, I don't know. It'll come back. So the thing that I pay attention to now is about food quality and about food quantity. So if I'm wanting to like overindulge in something, like, oh, I know what I was going to say, then so it's like I'm questioning, it's like I go back